Hey, my name's Jamar Harding, and I'm a director at Riveting Entertainment. I've worked with artists like MASEGO, Kiana Ledé, Tinashé, to name a few, and I'd say my style is kind of like cinematic meets beauty, and this is the Riveting Academy. So a treatment is basically the blueprint to your video. If it's for a client that's already hired you, it shows the structure of what you're trying to achieve. And if it's for a client that is trying to decide which director to hire for their job, it acts like a pitch. It also acts like a soft agreement between you and the client as far as what you can achieve for the budget that you've been given. So if you have a 1K budget, it's best not to write in pyrotechnics and a stuntman. Treatments were actually my first look into the inner workings of how music video production is done. I was in my teens, I was in a signed band, and I remember our first video, we got like a 50K budget. And one of the most exciting things to this day was getting 7 different treatments from 7 different directors, completely different ideas for the same song. And I remember that blowing me away and thinking, wow, I get to choose from these, this is insane. And then taking that and looking at it from the director's perspective now, it's super important for your treatment to stand out because it's going to be up against a lot of other people. So with that in mind, it's really important that you make your treatment super easy to digest for the reader and also exciting at the same time so it stands out. You can do this with highlighting certain words or highlighting certain camera moves, like Steadicam motion in this section, for example. But don't get too technical because you're not pitching to other filmmakers. You're pitching to an artist who doesn't know all the lingo. I've fallen down that trap a couple times and it does a disservice to your treatment. If you plan on becoming a successful director, writing treatments is gonna be something that you have to do, that you have to learn. It's how you get jobs, it's how you communicate your vision. It's essential, and you basically need to kind of almost market yourself in a way. It's a marketing tool, and almost like an advertisement for the video that you're gonna shoot for the client. It's what labels will pass out to the artist, it's what everyone reads before anyone signs you off. So it's a vital tool, and it's essential to getting to the point where you can shoot these bigger budget videos. The most important thing about being a director is being able to communicate your vision. It's something I'm still learning every day. That starts with treatments. That's the first place where you can communicate your vision to a client or an artist. It's super important to figure out your voice and how you can communicate things in a way where everyone can understand. So if you're looking to embark on this journey to becoming one of the world's biggest directors, you need to learn how to write treatments. It's imperative. It could be the difference between getting the jobs you want or not. So one of the most important parts of writing a treatment is knowing who you're writing it for, knowing your audience. So, for example, you wouldn't be putting curse words in your treatment if it's for a Disney artist. But if you have the chance, and it's a little unorthodox, but my favorite videos that I've ever done have all stemmed from an initial conversation with the artist. If you can have a creative powwow with the artist and sit down and talk to them and take those ideas that you get from that and build a treatment from that, what you get is something truly special. Because what ends up happening is the artist brings more to the table when they feel like they're connected to an idea, when they feel a certain degree of ownership over it, and it ends up just enhancing the video. They bring it more on the day. So that's basically how we got the Tinashé videos. It started off with a phone call, and we were on the phone for about half an hour just talking about ideas, and one of the ones that came up was a dance sequence in front of this huge LED wall with multiple versions of herself. So we kind of pushed forward on that, and it turned into this 2-day shoot where we shot these backplates of her against a white wall, and then we projected them onto these huge LED walls for a really cool effect. And it was this one shot that turned out great, and she really brought it because she felt really connected to the idea. That's one example, and it really shows what a collaboration can do for the end product. If it feels like they're attached to it, they're going to bring it more. That's just human nature. So what I like to do whenever I have the chance, or if it's on the table, I like to offer an initial meeting before. It could be like a day before, a week before the actual shoot, where we either sit down and have lunch and just talk, or we jump on a call and just talk through ideas and just, relax and be creative together. You're creating something together, Think of it like that. It's a collaboration. From a completely selfish standpoint, using these ideas will most likely get you the job because it's including their ideas, what they want to see. Obviously, don't do it from a selfish standpoint, but just do it for the sake of the creativity. So with all that being said, you're not always going to have the opportunity to sit down and have that creative powwow with the artist. What that means is you're going to have to do your research. You're going to have to stalk them on Instagram, see what they like, see if they are open to humorous ideas, if you have something funny in mind. These are all things you need to know before you submit the treatment because, well, they're not going to pick something that's not them. That research starts, at least for me, it starts with looking at past videos. It gives you a good idea of what they like, even down to the cinematography. The humor is a very big thing. Like if an artist doesn't have any humorous videos, odds are they're not gonna want a comedic music video. Instagram's a great place to just see what the artist is about, see their styling references, see what they like, and then taking all that information across platforms and just enveloping it and keeping it in mind throughout the whole process of your treatment. Okay, so it's a bit of a balancing game. The artist isn't the only person who's going to be reading this treatment. It goes through different avenues, and oftentimes it'll go through a rep or a commissioner first before it even reaches the artist. So you need to make sure that everything is kind of done in a way where it can be understood through many different kind of doors, if you will. So knowing that the treatment is kind of going through all these avenues, what you have to do is write in a universal manner, something that can translate across several borders. So the beauty of looking at past videos is that at some point, each of those videos got approved by the artist. So it says a lot about their brand, it says a lot about them and what they want to achieve. Of course, artists are ever evolving, but you can use that as a kind of a base layer for where you can start your treatment or kind of guidelines as far as what you can encompass and what they would like. So in summary, get to know your artist as well as you can, whether that's through a phone call or just researching through Facebook or Instagram or whatever sources you have. Get as much information as you can and let that inform the path that you take. And don't be too technical. It's not for other filmmakers, it's for an artist. So don't fall into that trap like I did. It is highly important for you to communicate your vision effectively. Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world because they do a lot of show, not tell. A lot of their ads are just kind of like these huge pictures and then they'd say something like the future. Take that and inject it into your treatments because it really does wonders. So if you really break down a treatment, it's very few parts. You have descriptive text, you have headers, you have pictures, and you have references. That's all you need to make an effective treatment. If you're using an image that could seem ambiguous, explain it. Say why you used it. I like it for the styling, or I like it for the cinematography or the lighting or whatever. Explain your vision. So oftentimes treatments might make more sense if you're explaining them to somebody in person, but it's not a presentation like that. It's not Word Excel. You have to be able to make a treatment stand by itself. It should be able to be sent out and everyone gets the vision just from that document. So using comparisons is a really helpful tool. One of my favorites, and the video hasn't been done yet, but like I'm gonna keep pitching it until it gets done, is for example, I had like a page with like an old person's home, and the header was, it's shallow hell but with old people. You can get it just from hearing that. You understand like, oh, I get what he's trying to say, and I understand, I can make that reference in my head. And it's a few words, but as few words as you can use to communicate your vision, it's gonna be more effective. No one wants to read paragraphs, no one wants to read a novel, so concise. Another important thing to remember is when you're picking images, they should fall in line with how you want the video to look. If you're shooting a night shoot and you use screen grabs from movies that take place in the day, it's going to be a confusing disconnect and they're going to be like, oh, I don't understand what you're trying to portray. If you do have to use something like that, that's completely different from what you're trying to achieve, make sure you have a descriptive text explaining why that picture is there. It could be the styling of this shot. I really like the composition of this shot, how this is framed. So explain yourself if it seems ambiguous. And you really have to be cautious as far as what images you use, because that's what the artist is seeing, or that's what the rep is seeing. And they kind of build this vision based off of what you're showing them. So if it's got completely different styling in a lot of the shots that you use, it could be confusing and it could seem like you don't understand the artist or don't get them. One of my favorite tools to use is references. So this could be a reference to another music video. Oftentimes I reference scenes in movies. Sometimes I'll just put like a scene from True Detective, like this desert scene. I'm like, yeah, this is the kind of look I want to go for. But make sure every time you put a reference, and you should make a reference page towards the end of your treatment or wherever, but a page that's just built for references. And you can put notes next to each one saying why you picked that reference and what that is referencing for the particular video you're trying to achieve. Like, I like how these desert shots look, or I like how Gwyneth Paltrow's reaction in this scene looks, for example. Or I like how this music video is shot, as far as the cinematography and the camera movements. Little details that they can kind of piece together. So you're giving them all the puzzle pieces and where to put them, and they're just putting it together. Use all the tools at your disposal. You've got text, you've got pictures, you've got references. Using buzzwords like dreamy aesthetic, for example. Things like that put you in that zone where you can, I can envision what this guy's saying, and I can feel what he's trying to get across. It just makes it easier to digest, and it's a way to get your vision heard. So remember, the most important thing to keep in mind when you're building a treatment is communication. Getting your ideas across and sharing your vision in a way that's easy to digest. Otherwise, you might not get the job. If they look at it and they can't understand the first page, you're doing yourself a disservice. Even if it's the most amazing idea in the world, if you don't know how to put it across in a way that people can understand, you're not going to get the job. So, being a director, you have to wear several hats. And one of those hats is low-key, kind of like a graphic designer. You know, you have to make sure what you're putting out there looks good. Ask yourself, would I want to read through this? If your heading is written in papyrus on the first page, odds are they're not going to get to the second page. So just keep that in mind and keep it understated, keep it clean. Try to have pages where it's just one photo, for example, and let that speak for itself. And then add text to the next page. Little things like that can build these spaces for the reader to breathe and just ingest what they've just seen. So fonts are way more powerful than a lot of people give them credit for. I came up doing lyric videos before anything else, so I really kind of dug into every single font and like what kind of energy each font kind of brings out of you, really. My go-to is Avenir Next. It's just like a foolproof way of just communicating a vision in a clean, understated way. Obviously, headers can be more catered to what the video is about. If it's something that's retro, maybe you use like a retro font for the title, for example. If the artist has a logo online, you should find that logo and put it on that first page. They're gonna see that, they're gonna recognize it, and it feels clean, and it feels like you care, because you do. So structure is also an incredibly important tool. You often hear about the 3-act structure, for example, in movies. It's kind of the same with treatments. You start with like an intro page and you kind of introduce the reader to the world. Maybe you can use some photos and a little synopsis. And then you get into the meat of it. Maybe you can start with chorus, or if they're features, you can have features on their own pages, for example. But splitting up the sections makes it easier for your brain to kind of compartmentalize and visualize what is trying to be achieved. I mean, use every tool at your disposal. If you're good at Photoshop, I've gone as far as putting the artist's face on another shot just to kind of get a point across. And I've color graded certain shots to kind of match the color scheme of treatments before. Recently, I did one yesterday where I created a custom brand for a juice that the artist would have created, but it's the name of one of her previous songs. So she saw that and she's like, oh, this is, yeah, I like this. What that does is it builds that world out way more effectively, because you're creating this foundation for the artist to kind of build off of and add their own ideas. So it really does help to be somewhat proficient in Photoshop, or if you're not proficient at all, you can just ask a friend There's always a friend that does Photoshop. And what you get out of that is you could add elements to scenes. If there's a shot where you want the sunset to be there, but the perfect reference shot doesn't have the sunset, you can put that there and you can create it before the artist even shoots their first shot. It's pretty amazing what you can do and portray and get across with the right tools. So remember, your treatment is an extension of what you can do and what you bring to the table. So if it doesn't look good, people aren't going to trust you. It's as simple as that. You want it to look clean, and it needs to be something that gets the tone across, that portrays exactly what you want to basically achieve. It's what gives the artist the initial trust in you as a director. And that trust is important if you want to get the right performance out of them. When it comes time for the artist to bring it, that trust that you're going to bring it on your end too is what is going to make them feel confident to do their thing and to let loose. If they feel like they're in bad hands, they're not going to be into it. They're not going to feel like they can do everything they can to make it amazing. So remember, your treatment is an extension of your vision, and it's the first thing that gives the artist trust in you. It starts with the treatment.